scale in and of itself is a challenge. And so I'll make an early and often invitation throughout our conversation where if you have thoughts on the things that I'm sharing and the challenges that we're seeing, please feel free to reach out. But I'll provide a couple of examples. The first one will be on technology and processes. The first patients we enrolled at Virta were for our clinical trial. And so when we first signed commercial contracts, we basically, lifted and shifted. We used the same clinical trial process to enroll patients. We therefore then built technology to support that process and continued to kind of in the early days scale that for our commercial contracts. As the first couple of years passed, we realized that what you need to do for a clinical trial is actually quite different than what you need to do to have a scaled technology first, digital first approach to a patient onboarding when you're onboarding, thousands of people on a weekly basis. And so we have had to continue to rebuild our onboarding processes while we've been rapidly scaling. And so most recently, over the last year, we completely replaced the technology infrastructure to enable both scale in and of itself, but also personalization of that process at scale. So that was driven by our product development leaders, and they really spent time thinking about what we would need for the next 3 to 5 years. Though, as you know, when you're scaling a business, as many of our listeners might have experienced, what you think you need for the next 3 to 5 years might only last you 18 months, and it might not be the right thing, 36 months later. And so while we feel like, this is a challenge that we've kind of met for now, we have a lot more of an understanding that we have to keep evaluating this and keep thinking about this. A second scale challenge I would be remiss without mentioning is around scaling teams. And scaling people always has complexity, and so we have, obviously, since the early days when I joined, Virta was kind of 20 to 30 folks. Today we have over 500 teammates. And so that in and of itself, the communication challenge, post-COVID remote work challenge, but I'll focus specifically on how we deliver care. So much of the magic of Virta is how we seamlessly integrate clinician care with technology. And so we're constantly changing workflows as we integrate new data and while we're trying to scale. So clinicians who have been here over the course of many years have seen many iterations of workflow and technology. And for most clinicians, that's different, right? It's not the same workflow or the same clinical decision support system that has been in the EMR for decades. It's literally, we're updating things sometimes quarterly, weekly, monthly. And so the way we've been able to surmount some of those challenges, I would say the primary underlying piece of that is culture. We all drive towards the same North Star, whether you're on the technology team or you're on the clinical team, and that's to deliver transformational and sustainable clinical outcomes. And so when you make that the North Star and you make that the culture that people are most driven by, that's what we're all here to do, I think it helps the individual in the moment N=1 decision making. And so when we are changing workflows, if something doesn't make sense, it also bubbles up pretty quickly. And so we've been able to kind of combat that with a good mix of culture and shared metrics and continuous investment in the operating system. But I'll also candidly share we're currently growing really fast, and it would be remiss not to say that there aren't things today that we're working on scaling. So this is an ongoing challenge and an ongoing source of excitement for us.